For young people like me, climate change is the greatest challenge facing our generation. We are living in a world where natural disasters are becoming more frequent and more destructive. Yet, we don't feel we have the power to influence the decisions shaping our future. But there's a movement building around the world to change that. My name is Anjali Sharma. I'm an activist and law student.
We have a responsibility to tell our government the truth of climate crisis like a crisis.
In 2020, I took the Australian government to court for failing to consider the impacts of climate change.
I'm just your average 16-year-old, except right now I'm insanely scared about my future, and I've decided to finally do something about it.
The case made a big impact. But ultimately, it failed. I want to find out how cases like mine can win and achieve real change. Greenpeace is a global supporter of climate litigation. I'm boarding the historic campaigning ship, the Rainbow Warrior, sailing across the Pacific from Australia to Vanuatu. I'm joining other inspiring activists using the law to take on big polluters.
Yes for climate justice.
And a group of young people from the Pacific taking climate change to the world's highest court.
Young people from the Pacific and around the world have called on the International Court of Justice to issue an advisory opinion on climate obligations in relation to climate change.
I want to know how we can use the law to make a difference, to protect future generations from the effects of climate change.
It's quite emotional because so much work and so many moving parts and so many variables have got into this moment. I feel so grateful to be going on this journey as a 19-year-old and meeting other amazing young activists, leading the fight towards climate justice.
This is going to be awesome.
From Australia to Vanuatu is a distance of approximately 1,300 nautical miles. We have 9 days to get there.
It's a massive crossing. It's just kilometres of open sea everywhere.
I was born in India, and I've grown up watching my community be devastated by consecutive heat waves and floods.
Oh my God.
In Australia, I've seen my friends be affected by bushfires and extreme flooding.
So crazy.
Like many students, I joined climate protests, trying to make change where I could.
I would say that the threat of climate change is never more real until it's on your doorstep.
I saw that this wasn't enough to hold polluting powers to account.
This is coal. Don't be afraid. Don't be scared. Won't hurt.
So, at the age of 16, I led a class action against the Australian government for failing to protect young people from climate change.
I reckon it's time for the Environment Minister to realise that coal is not the path that Australia should be on.
Initially, we won.
It is a historic judgment. The court has found that the minister must not act in a way that causes future harm of climate change to younger people.
The government then appealed to a higher court and the case was overturned.
I'm devastated by today's judgment and so angry. But it will not deter us in our fight for a safe future.
Although our case failed, around the world, hundreds of climate justice cases are before the courts, and some are winning. In 2015, the Dutch government was ordered to cut national emissions by 25%. In 2019, Shell, one of the world's biggest corporate polluters, was made to slash its emissions by 45%.
It's the first time in the world that a large multinational CO2 polluter like Royal Dutch Shell is ordered by the court to do its share in avoiding dangerous climate change.
These cases have changed the law and saved lives.
This is tip of Australia. This is Torres Strait. Torres Strait is here.
Right at the top of the cluster.
So this is where Boigu, Asaibai, and Boigu. This is where we're from, near the Guinea.
One momentous climate law case currently before the courts is being led by Torres Strait Islander traditional owners, Uncle Paul Kabai and Uncle Pabai Pabai. They've joined the voyage to Vanuatu to share their story.
The erosion is the worst, in fact, on the island of Saibai and Boigu. When I was a kid, we used to play footy on the beach. There's no beach on Saibai Fosso anymore. The beaches are all gone.
The cemeteries get impacted and damaged. The houses get damaged. The water flowing through the houses, impacting the gardens as well. So we don't grow any fruit and veggies anymore.
Because of climate change?
Because of the climate change impacting the salt, impacting the land. That's my mother's land, my father's land. I will never be removed from my land because I born to the land, I stay on the land, and I died on the land.
The uncles have turned to the courts in the hope of protecting their islands from sinking.
Uncle Paul, what are you asking of the Australian government?
We're asking the government to reduce the carbon gas emission, where we can have our next generation be safer. We don't stop now. Saibai and Boigu will go underwater.
If successful, the uncle's case won't just be protecting communities in the Torres Strait. It'll contribute to making us all safer from climate change. After 9 days at sea, the coastline of Vanuatu is in sight.
All representative law chiefs, all representative law youth, come back home. Come home, welcome home.
It just feels so emotional coming into port and seeing all of the dances, all of the songs. It really pulls on the heartstrings.
The beautiful people of Vanuatu are welcoming Greenpeace, who have brought together climate litigants from Australia, the Caribbean, and the Philippines.
I am Marinel Obaldo, a 26 years old, whose idea of a normal life changed after surviving the wrath of Super Typhoon Haiyan.
We're sharing stories of climate impacts in our communities.
The effort that it takes to feed your family is becoming increasingly harder. People have to...
And how we can support each other in fighting for climate justice.
To climate-impacted communities, you aren't alone in your fight to preserve culture. In fact, there are people all around the world fighting for the very same thing.
Climate justice! Climate justice!
The low-lying islands of the South Pacific are among the most climate-threatened places on Earth. To understand more about how climate change is impacting communities in Vanuatu, I'm heading 45 minutes out of the capital, Port Vila, to the village of Eton.
Eton is on the eastern coast of the island. This is the most beautiful community. My name is Tora. All my life, I grew up here. I go to school here. I live with my family here. We are very resilient in this community. That is what we were taught by our ancestors, our grandparents, and they taught us, be strong, be confident. So because we are facing the southeasterly breeze, now we are very vulnerable because of the cyclones, the disasters. They come in and out.
In 2023, 2 massive cyclones ravaged the islands of Vanuatu within 48 hours of each other.
Is that your house?
Yeah, that's my home there.
And that's where you were when the cyclone hit?
And I still have the roofs off, so it's covered up with the tarpaulin. We have to wait for these plants to recover, and then we can cut the leaves off and come back and sew them up and renovate the buildings. It will take me about 3 to 4 years.
In Vanuatu, climate change devastates a lot of homes and a lot of communities. It really brings a lot of pressure, food insecurity, and water issues. A lot of income have been lost. The economic cycle of getting the crops to the market and earning some money and coming back, that cycle has been broken.
We suffer from increasing frequency and intensity of cyclones. We have a much longer cyclone season now, and it gets longer every year. We have large areas of land which are no longer safe to live on, which have been safe for generations. Having 2 cyclones, category 4 and 5, occurring within a few days of each other, no one's ever heard of that, or definitely no one's ever experienced it. It's just unprecedented.
I've never met 2 cyclones in a week, first time ever. And I say, God, what's happening? Yeah. Everyone told us, this is a disaster zone, move away. We say no. We must be where we are because this is a community land, so we all live happily together. We work slowly to recover, but we are very resilient now, slowly, slowly.
Scientific data tells us that cyclones and typhoons are getting stronger and more severe because of climate change. And Category 4 and 5 storms in the Western Pacific have doubled since the 1970s. Marinelle from the Philippines survived one of the worst storms ever recorded.
Super Typhoon Haiyan landed 3 in the morning, and I woke up just hearing a lot of cries and shouts from everywhere, and the wind, it feels like howling from the very core of the earth. I mean, you can see houses disappearing in front of your eyes, and debris like floating around. Everything was just so light. Our government stopped counting the dead bodies when they reached 6,000. So in all records, you could see that there are 6,000 plus dead. But how much is that plus? And we did not have any food, we did not have any water, we're just all wet and cold. That was because it feels like our government they gave up on us. There was no effort to locate us and to actually verify if there are still people who survive. The trauma is still there, and it will never go away.
After the devastation of Typhoon Haiyan, Marinelle and a group of survivors decided to act. They wanted to hold the world's most polluting fossil fuel companies accountable for their role in making extreme weather more frequent and severe.
We asked the Commission on Human Rights to investigate the 47 carbon measures for their human rights contribution linked to climate impact.
7 years after starting their campaign, the typhoon survivors had their voices heard.
The Commission on Human Rights found that these companies, these 47 companies, could be liable and they should pay the communities for the effects of their business practices in low-lying islands and in vulnerable communities around the world.
And how did it feel to get that outcome?
I felt like it was a win for the community. It was the first step to the climate justice, to the justice that we deserve. But it should not end there. I'm in Vanuatu to give solidarity to the people of Vanuatu. And if we were able to take our case and win our case, they will also win their case. And I just want to give a big hug. I was like, I just want to hug every one of them and say we can do it. Oh, stop!
Vanuatu is a global leader in developing solutions to climate change. Here in Port Vila, a group of law students had an idea that would take an extraordinary journey, all the way from the Pacific to The Hague. I've come to the university where it all began.
My name is Belinda Monia Rikimani, and I was one of the founding members of the Pacific Islands Students Fighting Climate Change that initiated the Advisory Opinion Campaign on Climate Change and Human Rights. It started with 27 law students. So they were doing a research on what is the most ambitious option that they could use for climate change. It was through their experience of what's happening to their cultures and identity that made them see that they needed to push states to have ambitious climate action.
The first thing was an assignment given to law students. What is the most effective legal measure you can think of to address the threat of climate change? They came up with the International Court of Justice Advisory Opinion. They then felt strongly enough about it to establish a group called the Pacific Island Students Fighting Climate Change.
It's the highest court, and we wanted to see something that's going to push the negotiations.
An advisory opinion from the ICJ is the highest and most prestigious legal ruling in the world. It guides judges in domestic courts, so it has the power to impact laws and policies everywhere.
I received a letter from the students asking if Vanuatu could take this idea forward, and I thought it was a great idea. Vanuatu took it up. From there, the diplomatic campaign grew.
We are confident of reaching the requisite number of votes.
To get a matter like this to the highest court in the world, you need a majority of UN member countries to vote in favour of getting it there.
To date, more than 86 nations have pledged their support.
That meant years of campaigning.
Greenpeace has been a big driving force towards getting this campaign from the Pacific Islands to the United Nations.
And since that first idea of the students, we are now at a stage where a group of 18 countries has worked on a resolution to take this question to the highest court.
This has been one of the biggest achievements.
The Assembly decides to adopt draft resolution A/77/L58.
It was a mind-blowing moment. The matter was referred to the highest court in the world by consensus.
For Vanuatu, it's a huge diplomatic achievement. It's probably our most successful diplomatic effort. Of course, we're very proud.
This is not a silver bullet, but it can make an important contribution to climate change.
The court will hear evidence from climate-impacted communities around the world. Then it will hand down findings, setting out what governments must do to protect people from climate change. Not only do we expect it to be the difference between a loss and a win for climate activists in court, but it could also radically change the policies that are protecting people from climate change.
A strong advisory opinion could really help all these climate litigation cases in the world achieve what they're aiming for. And the emissions reductions that frontline communities need to survive into the future.
It speaks a volume for many of us Pacific young people that we are actually standing up for our people. And it actually shows that, you know, even though we're small, but we can do big things.
We're gonna rise like the water, we're gonna fight this crisis down.
Learning about the work started by the students here in Port Vila has been inspiring. I have renewed hope that a strong ruling from the World Court could change the outcome of cases like ours and help to safeguard our planet for future generations.
We are the front line, we are the first responders, and we can only do so much. We need world leaders, we need world countries, we need everybody to please work as one. Don't divide yourself. Work together. And together we can save our planet. I can save my community. You can help me save my country and my island.
We are all affected by climate change. So in this journey, I want us to work together and support each other so we'll have a better voice to the government.
We are one family. We're sitting on the one mat. All of us will go on until we win.
I've always had the will to fight for more climate action for people like you and for people like my family in India. Thank you so much. I'll never forget any of you.
Let's say no to fossil fuels. No. This is a big mission, but let's work together and all hands together, work as a team to fight this.
I've come to Parliament House in Canberra to knock on the door of our politicians. I'm here to deliver a petition signed by 25,000 Australians. We're calling on the government to support the Pacific and climate justice at the world's highest court. The time to end fossil fuels is now.